Hello, welcome to my talk on the compounding returns of serverless. So it sounds pretty magical. A bit of background before we get started. Tanya's talked through a bit of it. So originally I'm from a different west coast, so you're lucky to look onto the Indian Ocean. I grew up looking onto the Atlantic Ocean. A bit wilder, but it's a lot greener, and it's home. So yeah, about me, I like building products, so I really like working in small teams that tackle big problems. Yeah, I'm Irish, so I like a bit of suffering. I like to be in the trenches every day working on products. My pastimes are sea swimming. Colder the water, the better. That's what I grew up with, trying and failing at lots of different sports and growing some vegetables. So some of the products I'm working on right now. So the team at Hostel here, there's a few of them there in the fifth row. So your crew teamed with artificial intelligence. So some really cool work around AWS IoT and some really cutting-edge machine learning models that we're putting in front of customers. So Max has a shiny new website, so go and check that out. He got it up there last week. And if you want to learn a bit more about it, there's a community day talk I did that'll cover that. I also have a startup called Sensive. So really the goal of this is to help people check in on themselves as much as they check Instagram. That's kind of our tagline. We're launching next week, so head to sensive.xyz and join the beta, and next week you'll get the product. Here's a bit of an insight into it. This is my chart. You can see this is what happens when you do a presentation. Your vigor goes down and your tension goes up. So it does work. It's accurate. I can testify to that. So today's talk is more around my journey with Bamboo. So Bamboo, or blockchain bagels, as it'll be called in DevOps stream. So for kind of as a transformative period for me in developing software. So we made a digital product which makes investing easy, safe, and a part of people's lives, which was acquired about 6 months ago. And yeah, with a lot of good people, I learned a lot around really thinking long term about the compounding returns you can get when you take that mindset and the effect that can have on your product and in other parts of life, I guess. So the goal of today's talk really is kind of to, if you can come out of it sort of thinking with this upward curve in your mind when you're working on things and long-term goals, if that comes out of it as a goal today, I'll be really happy, yeah. So pre-Bamboo and post-Bamboo. So some of the changes, I guess, that happened during that period for me. So pre-Bamboo, compounding never entered my mind, so I never invested any money. I didn't think long-term really about investing. I spent money pretty willy-nilly. I had $300 AWS bills on my personal account. When my wife seen that, she was not happy. They were deleted pretty quickly. I never understood the worry about fees or interest rates, so 1%, 2%. Never really cared about that. And to be honest, I developed software pretty haphazardly, so I didn't really have any principles that were guiding me. I was very lax on testing code, things like that. And over the course of Bamboo and building a bank, you want to be sure that what you're building is right. So it was a bit of a transformative period for me. So since then, I invest about 40% of my salary. So thinking long term, I invest. I don't expect immediate goals, but over the long term, I expect that to compound and hopefully have a nice retirement. So I slash non-essential expenses. I keep that free tier as much as I can until the product scales a bit. I always read the fine print, and I adhere to strict principles in my development of software, which I'll take you through right now. So compound returns, what is it? So it's sort of when the interest is invested back onto the principal. So what I like to think of it is like a snowball that you're pushing down a hill. So the sooner you push that snowball, as it starts to roll down the hill, it's going to collect more snow, it's going to get bigger, and the longer the hill, the bigger the snowball. So the sooner you can start investing, the sooner you can start putting certain things in place and getting interest on that, the bigger the returns you're going to get. So I guess a quick compound intuition game to kind of see like how much we understand the benefits of long-term thinking. So if I asked you, how do you become a millionaire? So how do you think you become a millionaire? If, like me a few years ago, you thought, oh, you must have to put all the money on a big tech stock that's going to rocket and get 10,000 returns in a year. Maybe you think you roll the dice in a new cryptocurrency. I did it, it failed. But Bitcoin's doing pretty well right now, so you might be doing all right. Is it oil? Do you go out exploring for oil? I don't have any oil, so don't send me any money. I haven't found any. The actual answer is pretty simple. If you invested $115 a week for 30 years, you'd have $1 million in 30 years' time. So there's a few key principles from this that it took me a while to really learn that I want to point out, and I'll show how that kind of affects how you should approach software from my perspective. So $115 a week, that would be $6,000 in year one, and that $6,000 snowballs to be $100,000 by year 30. The $6,000 in year two would be about $80,000, so you can see the sooner we push that snowball down the hill, the better for us, and the longer we leave it running. The next really important thing, and this is where it's like the fact that I didn't care about fees really shows like the end result that can have. So a 2.5% fee would result in only 600,000. So imagine you went off and you said, I'm going to do the $115 a week, but you didn't look at the fees. And then in 30 years' time, you go to collect your $1 million and you realize, shit, there's only $600,000 there. What happened to that money? And that's that fee is compounding over time to end up with only 600K. So you're going on a pretty shitty cruise there for your retirement, unfortunately, because you've lost 400,000 because you weren't looking at the fees. So the first sentence I'm going to teach my kid, invest early good, fees bad. So that line, just think of that in your head. Those two principles we want to take forward into our development of software. So a lot of software teams are struggling. Thanks to McRock for giving me these State of DevOps reports. I always point them out in my talks. So the chasm between low and high-performing software teams is widening. So you can see really exponential differences between low-performing teams and high-performing teams. High-performing teams are deploying 208 times faster, or 208 times more to production, 106 times faster. So they're not kind of gains you get from slightly linear improvements. They're exponential gains. They're people who are thinking long-term and starting to reap the benefits of that long-term thinking. So from my experience being in the trenches, this is sort of how I see how software teams plateau. So when it goes sort of badly for software, it starts off really strong, and you reach a plateau as complexity starts to increase. So I want to kind of point out a few key reasons why I think that is, and the effects that it has on some early decisions you make on the end result. So, yeah, I don't know how many of you have built a product from the ground up, but a lot of the time when I started, you rush out of the blocks, you're really excited, you start delivering features to your customers, and you're not really thinking about the long-term goal here. So you're really just focused on getting features out, you're excited, the customers like the initial stuff, you keep delivering features, but you forget about a couple of certain things. Number one, you forget about automated testing. So you think, you have no tests. I've talked to a few people in startups actually recently. They've done really well, but they've reached the point where the lack of automated testing is starting to bite. So the first defects really start to roll in. There's more customers using your product, they're finding more issues. And so what you do at that point is you get a defect raised and you go, it's a 2-minute fix. I'll just fix that. I'll tap it that way. And that defect creates another defect because there was no automated testing to catch it. So what happens at that point really is the product owner, quite kind of rightly, ups the manual testing. So at that point he goes, no, we're not releasing unless we do a certain amount of manual testing. And that seems quite innocuous at the time, but what it is when you think back to that compounding returns is you've just increased the fee on your software delivery. So you've kind of put that 2.5% fee onto your delivery of software, and your delivery kind of takes a little downward turn. We're not getting that exponential upward curve that we want to look for. The next thing that happens, so the lack of automated deployment starts to bite. These two things kind of compound together, the lack of automated testing and the lack of automated deployments. So the increasing application complexity. So we started off with this pretty simple product, but we kept adding features to it. We might have a couple of products now. And we started deploying those manually. We didn't think about how it was all going to work together. We were too excited about it. But now we've got to start managing releases. So what we do is we say, we're going to have a release coordinator. It's going to happen every 2 weeks. We're going to release software. And again, what you don't think about is that you've created another fee. So let's say it's another 2.5%. And your delivery curve flatlines again. So you can see we're really starting to struggle. If other teams aren't incurring these fees, they're going to be really outperforming us. And then the next big issue I find nowadays is that you haven't looked into cloud native before you got started. You're used to just putting things on a server. Maybe you think I'll just put an EC2, it's a single thing running, it's fine for now. But these operational issues begin to multiply. The real thing I find is things like security issues. So any patching of security issues, these things crop up. You need maintenance of your servers, you need to load balance it as things scale. So these operational issues begin to multiply. And again, there's more fees increase. So all these three things are compounding together. And what happens is we sort of forget about features. All our energy is going into surviving day to day, and we're no longer really getting any output. We're not really delivering any features to our customers. So how many of you have seen a Jira board like this? So we see this illusion of progress. So you think you're great, you're in your sprint, you're on bug fix 871, you're going to get through bug fix 872 and 873 this sprint, and you're feeling good about yourself. But in reality, you're not really delivering any tangible results to your customers. You're really just, you're paying back fees that you've incorporated, and you're not going to get that retirement fund at the end. You're not going to get a really good tech product that's booming along. So yeah, I think what we'll find here with startups in particular, if you're a startup at this point, it's probably game over for you, to be honest, unless you've got really strong cash reserves. you're not going to be able to turn it around fast enough. And then some consultant gets to come in and call time of death of the startup, cause of death, lack of automated testing, something like that. But it's very hard to turn it around at this point. As an organization, you might be able to with a digital transformation, but if you're a startup, it's probably game over for you. So I've seen this before for some people with startups. I wish the idea had never come to me, and I wish none of this had happened. So it's just so painful at this point. Like, everyone's really stressed. People have taken on all these fees. The top talent starts to leave. It's a really horrible decline. I think Jeff Bezos has a line about it where he says, irrelevance followed by excruciating, painful death. And this is, I think, is what he's talking about, really. It's when these fees compound and we can no longer deliver features and other startups start to outperform us. So what's the solution? I love this quote from Sam Altman. He says, compounding is magic, look for it everywhere. So it's not just in finance we're looking for compounding returns. We can apply it to everything, even like physical training, anything like that. If we take a long-term view and we're patient, we'll get the results we want. So yeah, thinking back to that sort of compounding returns and keeping that in our mind. So our journey at Bamboo. So before I joined Bamboo, I was kind of like a hacker. I just wanted to get software in front of products, but we were building a bank, so we could no longer do that, right? We needed to do things the right way. So with our journey, there's a lot of beta trials, technical spikes, event storming, example mapping, no feature development for the first 3 months. I was getting kind of angsty on the edge of my seat. I wanted features in front of customers. So this is the kind of stuff we went through before we got started: event storming, understanding our system end-to-end, understanding how it was going to flow, documenting our tests, BDD tests. So simple thing like roundups. It sounds really simple, but each one of us had different ideas of what it was. So sitting down, putting the documentation in place, making sure that documentation lived with the code and lived on. And so we released the minimum feature set. We released it on St. Patrick's Day for some mad reason in 2019. I don't know why we did that. They wanted to keep me sober. So we released it. We actually had an Apple timed release, and we got the time zone wrong. So I woke up thinking I was fine another couple of hours, but it rolled out at 7 in the morning. And what happened was some bugs started to roll in. So customers raised some issues, and it would have been extremely stressful if we didn't have a delivery pipeline in place and automated tests. So we diagnosed the issue. We put some tests in place. And by the day after the deployment, we had put 5 releases into production to solve the issues. So we'd taken that real pressure off the team. And then the day after that, we were able to get back on customer support, solve another 5 issues for our customers, get another 5 releases out the door. And that really freed up the team to start looking through the customer support calls. And at that point, we could start actually delivering features to our customers. So we'd taken the pressure off actually like just surviving, and now we could get back onto feature delivery. So 11 days after the release, we were able to implement and roll out 6 new features to our customers. So all the back end was already in production, and we were just waiting on the App Store release. So within 11 days, because of these things we had put in place, thinking long term, we were able to quickly respond to issues, take the heat off the team, stop it before that stress really ramped up, and then get on delivering features really quickly to our customers. And so I think this is what I would call tangible progress for your customers. Our customers wanted these features. So we weren't paying back fees on bug fixes and things like that. We could quickly get back onto the things that mattered for our customers. They wanted instant top-ups. They wanted automated withdrawals. They wanted more visual data. So we could get back onto that. And one of the things I'm always thankful for is we went entirely serverless with the platform. So day to day, as the lead engineer, I never had to patch servers. I never had to manage anything. AWS took care of all of that. So I was really freed up to deliver features. And then I think what is the real kind of miracle of developing a completely serverless architecture is we earned interest. So I don't know how many people earn interest on their tech products. Usually you're constantly paying fees. But serverless is one of the few places where you'll actually earn interest. So AWS released a load of features. I think reInvent 2019 was a really big one for us with the architecture. So we were an entirely serverless architecture, event source using DynamoDB. And there's a few probably technical debt we'd accrued just to get it out the door, but we wanted to pay back. And luckily, AWS solved them for us. So all these features were leveraged at Christmas last year. I spent my Christmas leveraging all of these and re-architecting it in a few days. And that solved all our technical debt. And what happened then, it basically freed me up to automate a lot of the system for Peter. And that was just up until we required. The whole system was automated, and we were focused on delivering features. So I guess the proof is in the pudding. So this is the new Bamboo team were kind enough to share this to me. This is a product market fit survey from last week. So I don't know how many of you have done the product market fit question. So how would you feel if you could no longer use your product? It's a really brutal question, because if this one is high, not disappointed, it's really not that useful. If that's high, it's quite brutal. It's actually really brutal. So 57.9% would be very disappointed. 40% means you've got product market fit, anything above 40. So 57.9 means you're really, you're delivering tangible results for your customers and they really like the product. So I can see the time is ticking on. Some quick takeaways from all of this. I think for me as well, I've kind of struggled to articulate some of the reasons. It's not that I don't like Jira, but I find it frustrating at times. And I think it's that you can get lost in the illusion of progress. So don't get lost in it. Keep a high-level roadmap prominent and focus on the real results that you want for your customers. And be willing to let small linear opportunities go. So if you get offered something for 20 grand, but it incorporates a 2.5% fee, it's not worth it, right? Within 3 months, you're going to be screwed. You're going to pay back that 20% fee with interest. So really only accumulate fees for opportunities that are going to provide exponential returns for you. So it is okay to accumulate fees if you're going to get the returns on it, if it keeps that arrow going up, but a lot of the time it's not. I think the takeaway for me as a developer was learn to love testing. I know it's a painful journey testing. It took me 10 years in building a bank to learn to love testing, but it paid itself back. I didn't lose my hair during the startup journey. So I also think it's time to play with serverless. So I've been using serverless for about 5 years, and it's starting to gain momentum, and I think it's gaining more popularity, and I think the excuses for not having it as part of your tech stack are going away. So I would say play with serverless and then make it a part of your coding DNA. So a lot of people don't really understand the power of being able to deploy, tear down. So repeat it until your ephemeral deployments are part of your coding DNA, and you'll really feel the freedom of that once you get used to it. And I guess, yeah, just for you personally, if you're sitting there, it's okay to have big dreams. I really hate these stupid memes, which is believe in yourself and anything's possible. But if you put in a lot of hours every day over a long term and you relentlessly pursue it, and you put some principles around that, I think anything really is possible. And kind of invert your expectations of scale if you are pursuing that. So day one is not going to be 1 million customers. I thought that when I started out in startup. You're not going to get 1 million customers in the first year. But if you can get 500 customers in year one, even 20 customers in year one, 40 in year two, like those exponential returns, if you have a long enough term view and you really believe in your vision, it is possible, but you have to be relentless pursuing that. And yeah, I guess I have one thing to ask you before I'm done. Just go to Sense of XYZ and join our beta for next week for the product launch. We have a COVID pandemic, but we also have a mental health pandemic. So hopefully, this is our little thing. We hope we can help a few people out and really help them kind of help understand their own mental state and take some insights from that. So that's it. Thank you.